Okay, we'll call this meeting to order at 6:04. Good evening, everybody. We'll begin with a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You have a quorum, so we have all here. We have 2 minutes in front of us. What is the wish? Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, you can, whatever you'd like to do.
I'd love the table.
Table?
I move the table.
Move table, second. All right, any discussion? All in favor of tabling? Any opposed? Table goes till next week. Thank you. All right, that brings us to immediate business. Hey, public comments. Any comments?
Greg Whitmore, North Road. So I'm here to talk about high school options. So I don't think any of you were on the board. I don't know if any of you were on the board the last time the high school contract came up. I'm very curious why our students go to Pembroke Academy. I've asked the teachers at Pembroke Academy, none of them know. And I've asked a lot of town people, I think people who've been here for 20, 30, 40 years, and none of them can seem to come up with an answer either. So I'm curious why we don't go to the high school in our SAU, right, first off. So hopefully someone could answer that or, figure it out why Concord was chosen 8 years ago or so. So I've been putting together spreadsheets comparing our current high school choice Concord and what I feel is the best choice, which is Co-Brown. And basically I'm just doing side-by-side comparisons of course offerings at this point. And just from what I've gleaned, it's pretty shocking when you look at the offerings that Co-Brown has compared to Concord, and Co-Brown definitely comes out very much on top. So I have the science one in front of me. So Co-Brown is offering 11 more science courses than Concord. It has 5 college credit courses compared to Concord's 3. And it has multiple levels of each course, and Concord really doesn't seem to offer that, or just in a very limited amount. And so this is the only one I've really done in depth at this point, but all the other ones seem to kind of follow the same pathway. So I'm looking for some transparency and some communication about what's been going on with high school choice. I remember there was a announcement or an email at some point saying that that information would be coming, but I don't like waiting for information, especially for something as big as this, when that information just should be transparent. I mean, we should all know what it is. We should know every step of the way, because this is a huge decision and it's something that people are going to be watching very closely. I've spoken with many people around town about this, and just getting their opinions and their thoughts on our current high school and future prospects. And people want to be in the know. People want that open line of communication. So hopefully some of these questions or concerns are addressed at some point today. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bobby from Brown Road. Kind of just to piggyback on his comments, is there room at Pembroke?
Yes.
Or is it full?
No, not even close to full. I
So
want to say it's 800 some odd, and I believe we can hold around 1,200.
really?
Yeah. I'd have to get the exact, but it's when I showed up there almost 10 years ago, I think we were around 1,100, and now we're 8 something as far as I know.
Okay. And I don't know the logistics of their fluctuation and how many people live in Pembroke and go there, but that does make sense because it is our SAU and it's a lot closer than Concord. I'm not sure if you guys heard about the huge report that just got released, I think yesterday or the day before, where there's been severe violence and uncontrollable issues in the main hallway in Concord. So bad that there's like reporters that stake out and like go in and because they have the pass to go in. So any option for students, I'm hoping that you guys are thinking about school choice. Also, the paving, I don't know, without Jeff here, I don't know how that's going, but I do know that there has been no discussion with the other board about paving the driveway for the teachers in more than 5 years. So maybe it's something to look at now that things are kind of shifting. And I'm really excited to hear about what's come of the septic system issue because it was really bad for a lot of people the other day after the meeting. So like, I think a week ago. That's all I have. So interested in the high school and septic and paving.
You. Thank you very much. We will move into the agenda review next. Changes.
We have 2 items under number 10, appointments and resignations. Under information level, I have a fiscal year update from Amber. We want to add that as J.
Under information.
I mean immediate business, I'm sorry.
I had some items that didn't make it onto the agenda, so it doesn't look like we're gonna have capacity. I was hoping to talk about board meeting day, location, time, goal setting.
Yeah, without, getting into goal stuff without 2 members of the board, if Zach gets here, we could put it in 10 to 10. Want to put that in, or do we want to wait until we have a?
We can at least put it in to discuss maybe date, time.
Okay, so, under immediate business. Next. Okay, sure. Okay, and that'll be, goal setting or retreat, is that the one we took out, is that the last meeting, was the idea of a retreat?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
See Zach's here.
And then I think informational items. Sure, may go under immediate business, but regarding, communication. And just the vehicles that we want to use for communication. I know that there's some vehicles in town for communication coming online, so just maybe some discussion about like just the decisions about what vehicles we'll use for communication.
Right. Does that make sense as part of the goals conversation?
Maybe,
Well, why don't we put it in there and then we can work it out.
yeah. I know, I just know that there's like a May deadline coming up for one of the.
Okay. And I guess we're not actually doing business meetings down to one.
One per
business
month.
meeting.
Mhm.
So,
And
correct.
then work sessions
Yeah.
for the other meeting. Yep.
Okay, so let's add it under K and we'll say it's for goals. One more communication. All right, online communication. Okay. Great, so then on to D, review of correspondence.
We have C, we have a consent.
C, a consent, sorry about that, consent.
You have the Dale invoices for this month.
That's-
Remember last meeting? We talked about moving these to
Right, and the decision was meant to keep, made to keep them, yes.
Is it temporary?
I think because there was still issues with drivers and losing drivers, the board wanted
Do you
to,
want to use that? It's coming back.
yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, probably not.
All right, so then what would we like to do? We have two invoices.
I move that we approve invoice. Just trying to see which one I switch. For $37,179.
And that's for Deerfield buses.
6 buses,
With
yeah.
Deerfield, yeah. This is fine.
Second. Sure.
Yeah, second.
Any questions? Okay, for discussion, all in favor?
I, then I move that we approve the $14,046.84 for the buses to conference. It's the second.
Second. Second, all right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
On that, I just noticing that you were not CC on it. About adjusting the routes for 5 buses.
Do you want that to be now or maybe during the principal's report? Yeah, during your, what's your principal's report? Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so then for the correspondence, we had a number of items that have come in over the past month. I mean, some of them I saw a while ago, and so. But in keeping with what we had started several months or so, these were largely responses to the survey. And some feedback from the dialogue and some of the different conversations we've had over the building. Some DCS proposed expansion. Anything else to add about correspondence we've had?
One that we received in the last couple of days was interesting. It was echoing the sentiment that we've heard before about trying to work with the other groups in town. Some larger projects.
One that came in today?
Yes.
There was one that came in today. Yeah, okay, great, yes.
So I think it'd be interesting to try to figure out how to make that happen.
Right.
I don't know from a town planner that person would be, but I would look at them quarterback for trying to help organize, facilitate something like this. I think we've talked in the past about needing to submit something or plan some kind.
The emergency operations plan?
With CIP.
I think it's the CIP.
Oh,
I think
right,
we-
they're working on chapters and we have to, is that you, Nate?
Yeah, I have not.
Or
been-
designate.
Yes, we're still organizing this, but I haven't heard that.
So I don't think we can use that as a conversation starter for a Parks and Rec, police, like, let's at least try to have a conversation.
I don't think I was copied. Sure.
Oh.
Zach usually forwards, if they came in today,
It just came in.
yeah,
today.
Zach usually forwards them to
Just
me
came in
at
today.
some point.
Yeah, I'm doing
And
it
if,
right now.
yeah, if they come on a meeting day, it's not, we don't usually end
I
up,
was on a marathon meeting,
Um,
followed up by another marathon.
thank you.
Right, so you don't intend to bring it up, but at the same time, since we're not meeting for another
Yeah.
month. Steps.
I mean, it's to me, it's relevant to some of the other emails that we received about, survey, where we are today and path forward. So,
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting because it talked about, perhaps looking to have, it will likely require external facilitation and other resources, given the magnitude of the task. That's a quote from the letter, and I would agree with that.
Does it make sense to come back to this at our goal discussion? When we have dedicated time for that, or at least Kay sort of talk about something.
Are we making because there are a list, like, just trying to think if we should have like instead of, should we make a goals list? As opposed to sorting back, like maybe having a hunt back 30 minutes to find things. I'll help.
So the town plan or the communications. Two items that are just, that's fine.
Yeah.
Zach, make it to D.
D,
I'm going to take over.
I can do that. And I apologize, I was meeting since 7 this morning and we're supposed to wrap up before 5 and they wrapped up a little bit after, so I apologize to everybody. Did make good time here from Tilton to hear from you. So, the generator MOU, I think, I guess in summary, we have an agreement with the town for maintenance on our generator outbanks. School has a generator for the function of maintaining power here in the event of an outage, and the town's portion is obviously for the emergency shelter for the town. The school and the town have always split, Patty, if I'm correct?
Yes.
The cost related to the annual PMing of that unit. And I think recently, as that unit has been aging, there's been some discussion about additional work that is needed and how that is handled. And I think the town administrator has asked that we simply agree to split that as well in 1/30. Ready? Does that sound correct, Betty?
Mhm.
So that's the request from the town. They're just asking us to equally share the cost of any additional service or repairs necessary for the genset. So I think what we're looking for is approval from the board for me to sign the MOU with the town, agreeing that we will share those costs.
I'll move that. Yes, entering the MOU, sharing the cost for maintaining the generator.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion by Nate, second by Gigi. Nate, go ahead.
What, how much, when that comes on in emergency, that comes on when the town is out of power.
Yeah, there's a power goes out.
We're up.
Yeah.
And we're out of power.
Anytime.
Because the reason that it's here on the school property is because the school also serves as an emergency shelter.
So it also maintains the fridges and freezers and that stuff. So if we lose power, we don't lose. I don't know what the value of the food we have in the kitchen is, maybe Chris, but there's enough of it there where we don't want to let it go to waste.
Thousands of dollars.
Yeah, so it allows us to maintain that basic function inside the building, as well as obviously functions in town's emergency shelter. So I think that unit is obviously aging. I don't know the exact age of it, Chris,
Neither do I.
but as that type of equipment ages, it requires a little bit more than just a PM here and there, and other things need to be done and repaired, and the costs of ownership will increase slightly over time. I'll certainly want to keep it maintained in tip-top performance because the replacement of those is costly and contains stuff we don't necessarily want to have to do. So, any other discussion on that? We're all okay with it? All vote in favor?
Aye.
Patty, would you like me to sign that now so we can tell with?
I think what we got says draft on it. I think John's gonna need to send the final. Yeah.
It is.
It's a draft.
We are on to the septic system update. Chris,
Yes.
want to pull up a spot and join us, my friend?
Okay. So
What do you
currently,
got?
with the septic system failure, we're having the septic tanks, the first 3 chambers pumped out. We're gonna monitor them regularly and see when the next time is that we need a pumping. We have two separate leach fields and two pumps, so one goes to leach field B and the other one goes to leach field A. Leach field A is the leach field that's currently not working anymore, dead. So this week we'll get it pumped out. We'll get it pumped out again during vacation, give both leach fields a little break to recover. And then once the kids return that Monday, I'll monitor the well or the pump station to see how quickly it's gonna fill up. Shut the leach field that's currently dead completely off, so we don't get any more leaching up through the ground. And send everything over to leach field B. And then before that, schedule the pumping, so we give everything another break. Just so we don't end up ruining the other leach field, and have to design two instead of one.
So the A field is the one top of the stairs, hard left,
Correct.
and that's the field that's failed.
That's the field that failed.
That's the new field. for
That's
lack
that 10-year-old leach field, my understanding.
Okay. And so the B field is the one on the plateau down below, the field that's currently functioning, or
Nope, that's the abandoned leach field.
that's the abandoned field? I'm
The
sorry.
other one is just the other direction on the fence line.
So they go off and they follow the fence, the
Correct.
outfield fence lines, basically.
Yes, sir.
One's the outfield, one would be the first base fence.
Correct.
Okay, so the first base fence field is still functioning.
Yes.
And that field is where we're gonna push everything temporarily?
Within reason, yes. We'll let it cycle through that leach field, but we won't let it continuously pump into that leach field.
All right. Questions?
Have we had anybody out to look at siting a new location for the new, I assume this means we're needing a new leach field,
Correct.
leach field C. And so any work into spec?
Basically, we'll take the dead leach field, dig that one up, and just install a brand new leach field
In the same place.
in the same place. Yes.
We have LBA's been looped in as well to help assist with the engineering, because it has to be a design and engineering, obviously. So I know Jeff's been even.
Kinds of parameters that we given Jeff to give to LBA in terms of size. This was a 10-year, I'm not sure why we put in a 10-year leach field, but I would expect not to make another 10-year. What did we give for direction to Jeff?
So the emails back and forth with LBA have been, we need a leach, the 10-year leach field thing, where did that, it's 10 years old, but I can't imagine the school 10 years ago would said, we want to buy a leach field with a 10-year service.
I think that had to correlate with the expansion that was done. I know that was done 20 years ago. The installer was Steve Rollins.
Okay.
And his paperwork says 10 years ago
Because when it was installed.
when it was installed.
Right, but I'm saying it, I'm hoping at that point, it was obviously a different board. But that field shouldn't have been installed with the intent of it lasting for 10 years and then being this time.
Correct.
So I don't know what
I
failed.
believe they were the original engineer. I'm bringing this up from memory real quick. The original engineer, they could not do anything about changing his plans for some reason because he had passed away. And I think at the time, they just didn't want to spend any more money with the redesign. So they went with those original plans.
So it may have been an undersized system was put in, just replicating.
Maybe.
So Jeff's conversation roughly with LBA was we need to make sure, however, this is addressed what I'm talking. So they have their civil and whatever specialty falls into this type of engineering is talking to Jay to get us figures to do the design and put some quick estimates. So they work on that.
Is the money for this work coming from the same trust, the same?
I think that's a discussion we have to have once we get a rough estimate. So I don't know what a field for a structure the size is going to cost yet at this point. Could we potentially pull it from surplus if we have the funds in fund balance or fund balance if we have the funds available. Yes, we could.
But currently the work, the design work, the conversation with LBA right now, LBA is doing this work on top of the other engineering expansion. And the money currently is coming from the same.
We can,
No,
oh,
that contract is separate. So I think part of the conversation is, that they've asked Jeff, and I don't know that there's an answer yet, but are we gonna kind of work with the engineer, or do they, does LBA facilitate that? Because that would be outside of the scope of their contract for the expansion. Yeah.
and they're getting us those cost estimates. Okay. With that being said, once we have an idea of the rough costs prior to, bidding everything else, we have to figure out if we balance, trust fund. If we draw it out of the trust, at the end of the day, it's kind of the same pot of money. We draw it out of the trust funds.
This is trust fund from warrant article.
This is the existing, we'd be doing this before July, right? So this is going to be out of the existing balance of the trust fund, which is at roughly 400, approximately 300,000 and change. So it's going to be the funds coming out of that if we use that fund. Or we could draw off of our fund balance. The warrant article 4, $1 million was funded out of fund balance with the balance to be raised by taxation. So we can spend out of we can't spend out of the million until after July 1st. How the million's raised is dependent upon the fund balance and everything else. So, I mean, it's kind of all the same. It's the same pile. It's a matter of when and how you raise it. Obviously, we need to correct it as soon as possible. Right? But we need to get a little bit more information as to what we have to do. We want to make sure, obviously, the next time around, we don't want to deal with this. 10-year cycles, times up.
Yeah, right. It sounds like the plan for the next couple of weeks is sort of like a Band-Aid, right? It's not going to be a long-term solution, obviously. So how long do you think we could get by with doing that? We don't want to push that system, which means shutting off field A and just using field B. We don't want to use that system for.
Yeah, we're gonna be doing more pumping than sending it up to the leach field just to make sure that we don't have to design two leach fields.
As part of the conversations that are already taking place, are they including not just size and whatnot, but are we also considering?
Yeah, I think that's something that LBA is considering and well aware of. Anything we do may need to be expendable. And maybe we look at some point, look at the costing for the system that's sized appropriately for additional. But first things first is I think the engineers need to get a handle on what we need just for the existing loading. And then they can expand it out for additional.
Might have already happened, but is there a way to assess the functionality of the existing leach field? Like, is there a way to?
You could open up the D box,
Yeah.
which is the center point where the water comes up, gets dispersed out to the left and right side of the field. You can uncover that and see if it's dry or the water level of it. If the water level is down and not at the pipe, then we're probably in good shape. You can camera it to see what the condition is of the pipes. There's other things you can do to really investigate it.
Are you asking about B?
When we say failed field or the surviving field, because I'm getting confused on the.
All right, so the one that works, the one that we're gonna, the first base one.
Functioning field.
Yep.
So if that one works, we're gonna pump to it. Are we gonna potentially design and replace the bad one with a new one? And then all of a sudden, first base goes out.
I
That's
guess,
why I'm asking if there's a way to test it. Maybe there was something, deficient with, the second one, and that's why it's broken after 10 years.
it's a good engineering question to find out the installation date, whether it's just pipe and stone, which seem to last the longest here in New England. Maybe even camera it and just take those steps to make sure it's like, okay, you know what, these tubes are 3/4 full. You know, you're looking at another 2 or 3 years and then you're gonna need a new one. So based on age, a cameraing, and how the water is sitting in the D box might be good indications of a step that we should take, be proactive on it.
I would just assume if the other one's at the end of its life or approaching the end of its life, just to make one giant install. That's me.
Yeah. So not to spend the money to test it?
No, I'm saying we should try to do a little bit more. Are you working with a contractor now that could at least scope that and see, give us a better idea?
No, I'm not, but I can.
And I think if it's within reason, it's probably good.
To do what, to camera the line?
Yeah,
Okay, no, but I can get on one.
we think we should at least get a little bit more feedback on the existing field.
Function?
Yeah.
First base.
Go to first base, check that out, have somebody run a camera or a scope or whatever they do.
Yep.
See what's going on, and maybe we can try to figure out at that point how that one was built, because that one's, I think, that one's close to 20 years old at this point. We have the dates of the engineering report for when there's a total of 3 fields on site. If my memory serves me correct, there's the plateau, right, Chris?
Yes,
There's the abandoned field,
correct.
which was the original field.
Not initially around.
Yeah, that plateau in between the baseball field and the, call it a soccer field, whatever you want to call it, the lower grass area there. There's that one plateau. That's the original leach bed for the facility. And then we have the 2 that are, we'll call it on the baselines. So this is obviously a looming problem. I think once we get a little information back from LBA, we may have to have a couple of conversations and Bridget here to be able to make decisions quickly. But the things to noodle around in your head as we're looking at this, once we start getting an idea of what the costs are going to be, is how do we draw off the trust fund? Really, our 2 options: we run off the trust fund. That's really the places we have to take money from. We probably, I don't have numbers yet, but I suspect we'll find either way as far as what. It's just a matter of where we do it from. It's not something. So you want to be ready to answer it at the time.
What is the next step from the LTA?
They're getting the engineering people on together and getting it all. So
Do we need to make a decision as to whether we want to have the LBA involved in this, if it's a new contract, rather than just dealing with the contractor?
I don't know that we have to make a decision tonight.
If it would work, then there won't.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're right. That question was posed. So if that is gonna hold things up, you could answer the question.
So- From an opinion standpoint, the people we're working with now that know the most about this facility, outside of Chris, because he's been jumping every corner and any of it for the last couple of years, would be the LBA guys. Their engineers have been all over the place. So my personal opinion is to keep them involved in the process, and to utilize them, because I think it's a relationship that it's beneficial for us to have their experience throughout this. That's my opinion. Obviously, it's for us.
I'll move to ask LBA to continue to work with Jeff and Chris to facilitate a plan for our accepted equipment.
Second.
We have a motion by Nate to authorize LBA to continue assisting with this. Seconded by Gigi. Additional discussion? None, all in favor? Let them know.
Yep.
And just can you ask me the voices for that? Any expansion stuff, so we provide it.
Chris, you haven't been contacted by an engineer yet, right?
No, I haven't.
Do you have any other bad septic news for us, or is everything else good?
Got a couple wax rings that need replacing. Other than that, I mean.
We're good, all right. Everything else is good. The lines underneath the wings are holding up and all that stuff. We haven't had a root of those out recently.
Not, nope.
That'll happen tomorrow because.
Everything is flowing. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, I believe you also want to talk to us about this piece of paper I have in front of me.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm gonna let you lead the charge and walk us through what you're talking about.
Okay, first, our continuous fire alarm panel upgrade. Last year, we got the new central panel, because the other one just kept chirping every morning with troubles that we could not solve because of the age of the panel. Chief Fisher has requested us to make additional phases. As the years go by, he's not requiring us to do everything all at once and bring it up to code. So currently, Yeaton Associates is the fire protection engineer firm that we're working with. They've submitted bids, they've submitted blueprints and documents to the fire marshal for approval. He had a couple comments, and right now it's between Yeaton and the fire marshal for the final bid or the final drawings of that. Installer for that was RB Lewis. I had him in here a couple weeks ago just to see what we could do for phases. Entire building all at one time, but I think phases is the way to go. We can start per floor and just do each floor, making the additional peripherals, door magnets, orange strobes, emergency lighting upgrade, and then just keep moving around the building like that. Go to the second floor and just continue to make those upgrades over the next 3 or 4 years. So right now, we're just waiting on the approved copy from Fire Marshal. I've been in touch with Chief Fisher, and he has not received any word yet back from him.
It's the state fire marshal.
Yes, it is. I know Chief Fisher is the town fire marshal.
The state fire marshal is the one that.
Yes, the state is the, yeah,
We're waiting on the state.
yes, we are waiting on the state.
I was just gonna say, Jay said last time that he had a contact that he was gonna call and try to get us moved to the top. I haven't heard.
I know, so, Chris, the board has had some conversations about knocking it all out at once, and we're waiting to kind of get,
Okay,
look at some numbers options, rather than it has to be done, right? And so I think that was one of the conversations we've had is just getting the swing at everything. But we're waiting for, I think like you are, we're kind of waiting for the fire marshal to say yes, no. I certainly anticipate there will be projects tied to the fire alarm system for this summer. We just need to determine these things. And we need the fire marshal to do this.
But our town fire marshal is willing to stretch this out 3 or 4 years, you said, and so he considers it to be a safe building, if, as long as we're starting to do, is that?
yeah, all of our devices, sprinkler system is all functional and meets code. Meets code because it's grandfathered in, but now we're at the point where we have deficiencies that need to be addressed in the building.
But it's not currently compromising safety of our students.
No, because everything works as it should. There's just, like everything else, additional devices that can be installed. for
So
more
bring it up to
safety.
current code
Yes,
and to improve security and safety.
Correct.
Okay.
Questions on item number 1 for the fire panel?
Do we have like a point at which we're just gonna start acting on stuff if we can't hear back from the state fire marshal? So we just gonna.
One of the items at the last meeting was asking LBA to start getting docs drawn up to get a bit out on the street with language in it, just saying any changes from the fire marshal would be, and there was some language they were talking about adding, so the billing did turn into a bunch of change orders. But it was like a schedule break. So I'll be able to start in that process. There's a term. So I'll get it back, review it. Questions on the fire? Auto filling stations, this should be an easy one. I think we like these.
Yes. We have 6 old bottle filling stations that aren't refrigerated or filtered. Not that
Six.
the water's that bad, but it's
6
always
water
established.
bubblers.
What?
These are water bubblers.
These are the old school water bubblers?
Okay.
Correct. Correct. I'm proposing to replace 6 of the old water fountains with 6 new LK bottle filling stations. Now, these are just bottle filling stations. There's no bubbler attached. Me personally, I don't like the bubbler attachments. It's just too hard to keep clean, and it's just a mess and a breeding ground for just the common flu and everything else about that. So just going around with the wall-mounted bottle filling stations, refrigerated, on a separate carbon filter. You know, you see kids hitting the water filling stations and coming from one end of the school just to make it to a bottle filling station. So why don't we just replace with the existing ones, existing locations?
We put in 2 or 3 of them, right?
3
3
a
of them
couple years ago.
a couple of years back. I'm assuming, you guys can probably answer, my kids leave the house with a Yeti bottle every single day. Is half the, most of the kids here walking around with water bottles on a daily basis. So losing a couple of bubblers, because the ones we put in have bubblers on them, right?
Yes, there is, but there's safety covers over that I have not removed yet, just because of flu, COVID, the
Because
cost.
there was a pandemic.
Yeah.
Just because
For
of
2
the
years.
pandemic.
And that hasn't, the kids still have had access to the water.
No one's ever, I've never heard any,
So there'd be no change to what they're currently accustomed to.
just more places to fill up.
Okay. So are we looking to approve this stuff today to get cracking on it? Is there an objective, Betty?
Well, I would, if you want to get through the list and then have a conversation as a board and maybe ask Chris what his priorities are.
Okay.
Number 3, roof replacement. But I think, Zach, are you working with the architect on
Yeah.
that?
LB is working on that for us as
Okay.
well.
Parking lot design. It's a big key around here. That parking lot is horrible. 2 years ago, when I first came on site, I knew a civil engineer that basically gave me his cost to do a full site evaluation. If you look through it, it includes creating wetlands resource, conditions plan, subsurface testing, everything you're gonna need to put a bid out and draw up bid documents. His cost is $35,000. This was 2 years ago. I'm not sure. I haven't reached out to him to see if his costs had gone up. But I think it's too late in the season to say we're gonna get an asphalt contractor in here to do all this work and get it done before August 15th, before everybody starts coming back in. So my proposal is to get a engineer in here now over the summer to do all this big document work that's gonna be needed and all the paperwork to the state, to the town. And then that way we're fresh to go summer of 2023, as soon as school is out.
Questions on that?
I think, did Kathy put in your drive the document that I highlighted from the warrant article that was amended? I'm not sure. Is it in there? Okay, perfect. So I asked her, because we talk about the amendment and the relationship that we need to have with the Conservation Commission related to this project. So I had her actually pull the official legal language so that we know exactly what was said and what was amended. And what it says is the plan shall be developed in consultation with the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board. So it's not that they have to approve it, but we have to do it in consultation with them. So they have to be involved. So I just wanted you to have that so that you knew what the language was from 2014.
So I think the big questions regarding that parking lot is, well, there's a few. The first one is, do we want to go down the road of trying to remedy that lot?
It's horrible. I mean, the working conditions, I would say,
I hate it.
it's, people get stuck, people come in covered in mud, people lose shoes, it's, I don't know of any, Brian and I said this, I don't know of any other school in the state that has a dirt parking lot for staff to park in that turns into mud and ice, glare ice.
Do, who's the current chair of Conservation Commission?
Rita Fry.
Still Sarita? And then is it Pete on the planning board? Do you know? Pete- Is it Pete?
You talked to both of them, by the way, about this subject.
So that's the first conversation we have to have. And then we can look at engineering costs at that point. I don't want to spend any money on engineering if they're going to come back and tell us it has to be permeable asphalt or something.
That's, I mean, it's, you have to consult with them,
Right.
so it's a good place to start.
So why don't I reach out to both of them, or if somebody else wants to grab the mantle, and see what their thoughts are on it and see where they want. If we're ready to talk about it, that's going to be the first place we have to.
It has been discussed as part of this larger project, so we would be pulling it away from the beginning essentially.
We'd be pulling, well, I mean, we could go to LBA for the engineering, civil engineering permit as well. Again, part of what LBA has done is they've already done a workup on everything that's currently of our existing conditions. So there's a huge amount of engineering that's done in advance, just for the physical site. The big question is if the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board are going to say, no, it has to be this, and if it's not a feasible option, then we're stuck. We have, I was just looking to see if I had the fund balances. handy.
I have it, we have it as 4J, we added it. I can tell you now.
Go
It's
for
like,
it.
it's not, it doesn't take long to give you a number.
Yeah.
As of today, it was $473,549.
I'm sorry, that's the fund balance,
Yeah.
the trust fund.
Oh, the trust fund?
I apologize. I was looking for the
Sorry.
trust fund.
Just paving.
Yeah, because the pit for the paving fund.
I don't know if my budget minder was.
Yeah, I was. looking at that stuff. 70, it's about 70 grand.
72,000.
Been tuning up on the numbers.
$73,245.
73,245. So we would consume a significant portion of it, potentially just in getting the engineering done. Again, we have that, the potential for drawing it off of that larger facilities repair, the balance off of facilities repair. So I'll start with the planning board. If the board's comfortable with it, the conservation commission. You want to reach out to them, or I'll give Pete a call and see where that goes. If the board's comfortable with that, see if they're ready to have that conversation. If they are, maybe we can facilitate getting them all here. We'll engineer it, obviously, see where it goes, but it's a starting.
I think that we can, or this is a question for LBA, when and if we do this project, is it all gonna get hooked up when they're used for the
I don't think so. I think that was in the plans, I think that was still all intact.
In the original plans, right, we don't know what ideas are gonna come out from additional conversations, but the original plans, parking lot portion would have basically been maintained. A road coming down towards the modulars would have been what was potentially upset, and then a road around the building obviously would have been added. That also, I mean, there's a chance that, a proper layout up there and lines painted and everything else, we may find that parking lot is big enough to fill our needs without putting the flag leg down towards the modulars. And if we just properly stripe them on that lot, it may be big enough to hold cars we need, and we may not need to worry about paving. So that's part of letting the engineers engineer it and I'm sure we can figure out how many cars we have here on any given day, and so you give them an idea. And we can blow that up. So. Let's hit the planning board and the conservation commission first, but maybe it's time to get that one knocked out.
Great.
Loading dock.
Loading dock. My loading dock is literally crumbling as we speak. I just propped up the stairs with a 6x6 post. Wasn't installed correctly, probably, and then just with the rain, ice melt, freeze, thaw, it's just crumbling to nothing. The handrails are rusted out, the gates are rusted out. The angle line that holds the bumpers is pretty much ready to fall off as well. So it's just time to install a new loading dock with all new hardware.
Is our dock one of the variable height ones, or is it just a concrete platform they back up to
Just a concrete backup
with
to,
a couple of bumpers on either side?
Yeah.
So it's a simple dock. It's not,
yeah, it's nothing,
it's not an adjustment.
very simple.
A random question, what's the roof line? Do we have an idea?
Go straight up.
All right, so there's nothing that sheds material.
No, no,
Seems like an easy one. Asbestos testing.
what's that?
Asbestos testing.
Asbestos, yes. We had asbestos done before we installed the gym floor, before the gym floor was installed. And just this ties into the construction. I feel that we should have another asbestos test taken throughout the classrooms just to check for the adhesive that was used on the VCT tile. And in the back of the mirrors is where you find more asbestos products.
Even built in 1990, there would still be asbestos?
We have no documentation of, at least I couldn't find anything, and the state does require and I don't know if it's a state or EPA in a HERN test. I'm probably slaughtering that name really bad, but it's just documentation that should be put out there saying that on this date, the school has been tested with no results of asbestos compound in it. It's just, it was more in line with the renovation of inside this building. Last thing we want to find out is that we have issues and that delay the project by weeks. We'll get that taken care of, just being a little proactive.
Andy?
I don't know if I can answer my own question, but is this a one and done test or it's become like a?
Nope, just it's basically a one and done. If we test, multiple tests throughout the school with everything that has been known to use it, one and done, and we have all that documentation going down the road.
All right, parking lot refurb.
That was just to bring in some parking lot mix, just to kind of level everything off in all the ruts.
The gravelly?
Yes,
We're due for striping anytime soon, or we go through the year?
I'm taking every 2-year cycle, so it'll be 2023, next time that goes through.
Okay. And in-house painting seems self-explanatory, but.
Yep. All the
Painting,
big areas are done, the hallways, we're installing brand new screens in a lot of the classrooms. And we have wallpaper, it's been on the wall and just falling off, holding up with tape and tacks. I've got a really good painter that worked for me a couple times over Christmas break. And a couple other girls from the summer that do a wonderful job painting. So just cut
So-
them loose and get
so
a
you
lot
have-
of passion taken care of.
at this point, in the last 2 years, we did, the first floor hallways have all been done.
Yep,
The second floor hallways have all been done,
indoors, yep,
indoors.
Yep.
The stairwells
have not been done.
have not been done,
Nope,
but you had a plan, I think, for that. It was to try to get everything in about a 5-year
yes,
rotation.
yep.
So then this would be to start hitting spot painting classrooms, or would you try to do an entire classroom at
It all depends on the condition of the classroom.
Okay. And this is for the summertime or
This is for summer.
This is for summer.
Yep,
That seems like a no-brainer.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is this, are these all items that are outside of your budget that you
Yes.
need funding for?
Yes, yes, they are,
So make
yes.
sure.
And
Can I go back to the previous parking lot?
Yeah.
We periodically bring material in to the lot to like level it. Do we ever do anything on a regular basis to fill in the holes?
That's basically what the material is brought into. Right when you come up the main road and you turn, take that right.
Yeah.
All those little potholes and divots are basically get refilled.
I guess how often do we refill or bring material in?
I'd like to do it now or sooner than later, just to relieve everybody's from bouncing every morning. And then see what happens over the summer, tackle it once again before everybody comes back into school, have a good fresh parking lot.
so that would be to bring in material and have somebody spread it.
Correct.
So how much material do you think we'll bring in?
Last time we brought in 10 yards. And that took care of everything really nice.
It's $5,000 for 10 yards and labor sounds.
I think it was actually 3,000 from the contractor that I had to do it the last time.
Okay. All right. Questions on painting? Okay, so currently have a list of certain things that I think are kind of in the works already. Obviously, the fire alarm panel, we're waiting on information. I think the things that are easy for us to address right out of the gate would be the bottle filling stations, the loading dock repair, painting, the parking lot, refurb, testing. The question I have on the refurb is if you're gonna engineering, well, I guess you still need to go time before whatever. So let's kind of knock down the list. We can, if anybody else wants to add anything, but as far as the bottle filling stations go, it's lots of the board on that. Start cutting loose on stuff.
I just wanted to ask a question in terms of the fund balance and the money, just to make sure that we have all of the priorities, like all, that we can cover everything. I mean, I'm doing some simple math. That is on this paper are doable. But I'm just trying to think of,
What Chris has done this year is he has beaten Brian to a board meeting.
Yep.
Very smart of you, Chris.
so that's all I'm just saying is, I mean, do we need to, are there other things on here, like, are other big ticket items that we,
So the big ticket items, I think that the board is really looking at addressing right now. The board's kind of, the fire alarm panel is item A that the board's started its progress with, right? And LBA is helping us with that process, we're waiting on the state fire marshals. We've seen some very rough estimated numbers to do the whole project, and it's gonna be a significant chunk of money, but it would allow us to address all of what's to be done. The roof would be the other large, I think, project that is addressable in the near future.
Yeah, I think what we asked them to do was when the engineer comes or has already come to, or there's sections we could do.
Yeah.
instead of doing
And
it
that's
all
what
at
they were
once.
going to address was, if we can do parts of the roof, just the bells and sections. And also if they can get us deep enough into mechanical design so that we can spot our curves on the roof. So that in the event we get to the point where we're going to tear out the mechanical systems and rebuild them, our structures are set on the roof already. So
and
we're not,
that's what I was thinking.
we're not cutting the membrane open to then go and install the curves and then try to see, because you'll never see the back.
So we're sure that these are the high, like, because we had other things that were on there, the HVAC and heating system, you know, things in the kitchen, there were a lot of things to be addressed, so I just wanted to make sure.
From the prior list, you mean, that we were working from?
Yes, from the prior list that we were working from, and from the list that LBA generated, as well. So
I think the big ticket items, the immediate big ticket items are the roof. And clearly the septic, and now the septic system. But those are three significant items that'll, we knock all three of those off. That's three major systems that are getting addressed.
Right, but I think it's worth talking about, you know, it is a default budget year, so where is the money coming from? Do we, you know, for instance, do we go with 2 bottle, you know, do we double our number of bottle stations rather than adding 6? And I think that might be a way to start to, it's not a big difference in terms of. This default budget, I'd be curious what our numbers are.
it's not, I was just doing that in my head, so. Because we have fund balance, we have some combination of the fund balance and the $1 million
And the existing trusts.
in the existing trusts.
So the existing trust, do you have the trust balance sheet, Andy, still? Sorry.
Chris, I'm assuming there's no immediate issue with the bottle filling stations. Do you need to order them in advance to get this done over the summer? Can it wait a little bit before a decision is made on those?
I'm sure it can.
So there's no urgency to.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, no. We can do.
This is from the beginning of the budget process. But, for the facilities repair is 343 to.
Less what we have to, no, I'm sorry, LBA is next. The fire alarm panel. It's gonna be. So that was the intent.
Excuse me, Nate, could you repeat that number again?
343 to 39.
And then we have another facilities.
The panel could be, that's not the panel that Chris was talking about doing in phases. That's
No,
not
no,
the
no,
panel.
we have the existing, the panel we've already installed.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
We have to have the public hearing to draw the funds on it. And the fire watch. Then we also have so that's the facilities repair
Repair, yeah.
and improvement trust. We have a facilities equipment repair.
Placing or repairing technology. There's a facilities equipment that's down to 100.
Currently, about that?
25,000.
What's the title of it?
That's the facilities equipment. The Deerfield School Facilities Equipment.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Andy,
Can I move 5?
voting dock repair?
They said that they want us to do a better job maintaining and repairing what we have, so I think at a minimum, let's send that one. Start checking them off the list.
I guess what I'm saying is that if we know that there's not over $1 million of things on this list. So there's about 140,000 worth
Well-
of things on this list.
70,000 of it right out of the gate. 70, I'm sorry, you got 35 for number 1. Yeah, if you look at it, Gigi, number 1, number 4, number 1, 3, and 4
Yes,
are kind of concurrently already occurring with LBA.
okay.
We're waiting for information from LBA. So the items that would be in
So
question,
there's costs that are already being paid for.
they are, LBA is working on getting us pricing and for instance, to do a roof. We have the parking lot design we haven't tasked them with yet, but we certainly can, but we're going to start with the board and conservation commission. Number 1, LBA is already, and the fire engineering company. E has already, we already have, prints are already done. So the question for us with when one occurs is the overall cost. We break it up into phases and each overall. But we've already kind of anticipated that's a looming expense that we're going to be drawing from one of the funds. So the numbers that were really, I think, are actionable at the moment would be number 2, number 5, 6, 7, 8. So Andy's made a motion for number 5. I'll second his motion. $10,000 gets you your loading dock squared back up is what you're estimating. So the question now is, do we have additional discussion?
It would just come from this,
We
the
can
fund balance,
draw from fund balance.
which is good.
Or 73.
It's, Amber largely, they're not closing things out. Is that-
No, there should be more release. I think May 23rd, we're hoping to have as many POs closed as we can.
Then that number will up.
Any additional discussion about the $10,000 to start lining up the repairs? All in favor?
Aye.
Let's get cracking on that one. Andy?
6.
6, asbestos testing,
Second.
discussion. Favor?
Uh,
Let's get cracking on that one. Andy, you want to keep rolling?
We talked about 1, 3, 4. I kind of like Nate's idea on 2 bottle filling stations. Last time around, we did 3, so. I mean, I guess we're gonna,
So right now, we've got the existing bubblers are capped off, right? Where they're turned off or they're
Yes.
removed, they're just off.
They're just closed.
So we currently have a filling station from the front door.
Yep.
One in the gym,
No, just one downstairs,
one downstairs,
one out here, and then one on the other side.
180 degrees apart.
Yep.
So what you'd be, if you had 2 or 3 of them, where would they end up? What would be your attack plan?
In first grade, second grade wing, kindergarten wing. And then if you want to split it, maybe one more either side.
So 2 of them would give you one at the front door, one on each wing of the first floor.
Yep.
So that's where we would go with 2 of them. 3 of them would put third one on the 3rd floor, more than likely. Sorry, 2nd floor. I added a floor. I fixed all the problems. Just like that. Boom. Problem solved. So that would give you an extra one to place somewhere,
Yep.
or would it be logical to put it in like the cafeteria? Is that a?
So there's nothing there, there's nothing
Or no?
Yeah, these are all replacing existing bubblers.
So if we have, just, since I'm, if we know that we have money in the fund balance, is there a reason why we're cutting back on the bottle filling stations? Is that a case, like, I'm just thinking like in terms of instructional time, kid, like, I'm gonna walk around to the store. And to me, like all the other places where we just go, yeah, let's throw this money at that $15,660 to do the job, get everybody
That's tough.
a water filling
Second.
station.
Did you just make a motion?
I did, and I moved that we did them all.
Discussion?
And I don't want to negate, Nate, you're wanting to fiscally conservative and to look at it. I'm just trying to, that's why I keep asking about like how much money do we have and can we meet the priorities? It seems like we can.
I think,
Yes, yeah, I would be that kid. I'd be like, I'm gonna go fill up my water bottle.
And you go,
In 20 minutes.
you go find the furthest one away.
I can't even tell you, like, what are you doing all the way over here, though?
well, that's good to hear, though.
For sure.
Probably find a middle schooler like in the far corner of the kindergarten wing.
They tell me this one's better, or this one's colder.
Oh, yeah.
The water is better here. So what I would say, Chris, is the one thing that I think Nate and I were here last time, I think it was before Gigi, is one experience we had last time is we bought the filling stations and they sat box for like 6 months or longer. So if you get them, at least just get it scheduled. I understand. It may be over the
Like
summer.
the sit in the box type of.
He's not. That's why this is Chris. But
And also, they're very popular now, but I did work in a school where they got them and then they could not get the filters to change the filters out. So just make sure there are plenty of the.
commercially, all right, so. Motion and a second to get cracking. So if there's, so for 6 of the gizmos. Favor. Was that a real name?
That was a real.
So it's 3-1. Andy, you want to keep rolling?
Yeah, I feel like painting would fall under maintenance and upkeep, so I'll move 8.
Okay. Is $2 grand going to be enough, or is that just going to max out your time? It's a loaded question.
Anymore, I'll just have paint that won't be used, between stripping floors and moving
That's-
features around, yeah.
It's a finite
it's gonna
amount of
be, yeah.
Okay,
I'll look it up.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. We're not, actually, in years past, we've been hiring in a commercial painter, so this is in lieu of bringing in a commercial painter for any work this year.
Well, if we want to stay with my original plan, the stairwells would be next.
Okay,
But at the time, I just didn't know how many contractors were gonna be in this building trying to get work done.
Okay.
And the stairwells, we're gonna have to shut the stairwell down for at least a week, I would think, maybe a little longer. So it was just making everything accessible. I can
So-
easily get numbers to do stairwells and report back.
if we did stairwells next year, we'd be on year 4 of your 5-year plan. So the next cycle would be to hit the first floor again, or would it be year 6, you hit the first floor again? So it had 5 years of,
No, gymnasium's gonna be done too in that mix.
so that would be potentially a next year project.
Yes,
So we could tie stairwells and the gymnasium and try to get them on a similar cycle. But is that gonna make?
honestly, I'd rather just get the stairwells done this year. And then next year, I just need to worry about the gymnasium.
So if you wanna try to get some estimates from a commercial painter on that?
Yep.
And relay them back to us? So we can try to get that one. So that would put first floor on 1 year, second floor, when I say floor, hallways. 1 year would be the first floor hallways, the second year would be the second floor hallways. Year 3 would give you classroom touch-ups as needed, as well as stairwells.
Yep.
Year 4 puts you into the gym.
Yep.
Year 5, you start all over.
Correct.
1 year what?
We're on year 3. Right now. And that keeps the sequence of your own in certain areas. I mean,
It's a 4-year plan, not a 5-year plan?
well, year 5, you're back to,
I think originally, I had classrooms in offices included in that cycle, but if we're gonna take them in-house, one less exterior contractor that we need. So it's comes out to be a 4-year cycle.
Ain't look that bad in 4 years.
Nope, because actually during Christmas break, we touched up all the hallways, so everything actually looks pretty good right now. And that's my original plan, it's just if I can hire my summer help to come in for that week. One of our paras, she's a great painter, she's the Energizer Bunny, and she just rips right through the halls and touches everything up, and it looks great.
Just not putting a new coat over, it's not putting a new coat over everything every 4 years.
I guess it's gonna have to wait to see the condition of the paint. It could just be a touch-up, it could just be one section of hallway.
Okay.
I think for us, it's more of saying, this is the plan. And then if we get to that point when Chris comes back and says, we don't need to do it this year,
Right.
you
it's
bump
just
everything
cut
a
out.
year.
Yep.
And you go around, you spot touch up some things, you hit some walls. I think there was a lot of improvement when we redid all the doors last year, that kind of like fixed a lot of where the wear was visible,
Yes,
because you saw it in the doors, so then. All right,
Just a quick question, eventually, Chris, will, in-house painting be something that you'll just put in the budget?
Well, I think it was.
It has been, I've been increasing it, but
Oh, okay.
we
But just-
keep falling back on the default, so.
Okay, got it.
That's.
Yep.
Deferred maintenance item, it appears.
Thank you.
All right, so in-house painting. Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Parking lot refurb, I'll make a motion on that, but I would just put an amount up to 5,000. It doesn't sound like you need the whole $5,000, so if you can do it for less, obviously.
Do it for 5 or less.
Discussion?
This would be, we're talking about mud and stuff like that. Is that gonna happen? I mean, when are we looking to get it repaired?
So I think from a time standpoint, the next opportunity for us would be probably looking summer 23.
I mean, it's the whole, you need that done right away, right?
No,
Yeah, this
I thought you were talking about the pavement.
No, yeah, I'm talking about how quickly would we be able to turn that around? Is that
Honestly, I'm
something
gonna
that's
contact a couple contractors and have them do it on a weekend. So
I'm sorry.
sooner than later.
I wasn't trying.
So if you have a Jeep and you live in town, you have like a week to come drive to the parking lot and have that full Jeep experience before we get it fixed. All in favor? All right.
It's like falls under my maintenance. Yeah, of course.
There you go.
Send it.
Any additional items that the board members have that they want Chris to put an eye on while he's here? Is there anything that you guys can think of that kind of jumped up on Chris hasn't seen in school, but?
Chris knows what's going on. So out back, our bridge that goes to the back forest.
Yep.
We did some investigating. We had some missing boards we tried to replace and it's totally rotted. So we had some free labor with my Live It Green magnet, who have now demoed the bridge. We're working with Jack Hutchinson on redesigning a new bridge. It's actually become a project for our magnet. So Jack is estimating about $3,000 worth of supplies and obviously some free labor. So that's a project that we're working on. We're just gonna, it's coming out of this budget. So, but we just wanted to make you guys aware that that's happening. There is a little bridge next to that bridge that people can still access in classrooms, but we're gonna be redoing that whole bridge right in the next 6 weeks.
And Jack has gotten behind helping with that.
Jack is kind of like overseeing the whole thing. Focus one to either pay for all the supplies or cut it in half, but we rather see Focus do something else with that money. Just take the hit.
Is there a magnet budget line that's?
No, I mean, we raised money for the dance, but that's like $100. So
We're just gonna use maintenance supplies.
so it's gonna come out.
Existing.
Yeah, it'll come out of existing funds. But-
Is there
And that was probably built, I actually spoke to Cindy, she's thinking it's close to 20 years. So some of it was replaced, some parts were replaced, some weren't, so the whole thing just needs to be redone.
It served its purpose.
Yeah.
It's great.
So has there been any other, I'll throw it out there, any other thoughts about building additional permanent classrooms out back, permanent outdoor classrooms?
Yes, Jack said he is interested in doing that. It's just a matter of finding the time to do it. So I believe he's looking to do 2 more.
How many have been?
We have 2 permanent,
Two?
And it was.
2 of the 8.
Grant funded, it was money that we put into our grant, and so we can do that for our next.
Can we do that with grant funds?
We still have.
Awesome. So. that's
You
great.
haven't planned out that whole grant yet, have you? I didn't think so. Just wanted to make sure.
I'm waiting for the grant people.
The grant manager.
The new grant people in the building too.
All right, so that's an upcoming project we may hear about at some point. Jack can get behind it.
Yeah.
Cool, well, that's good news. Is there any other,
Was the stairwell painting approved?
we need numbers.
Numbers you want.
We need numbers to get cracking on that. And then The modulars, which we're living with for longer still. Those are currently carpets carpets have been replaced, painting's been done.
Yes,
Is there anything left that we need to do to those to make them livable for, let's just assume it's gonna be another 3 years?
nothing structurally.
Skirting is,
Skirting is in good condition as long as the weed whackers stay away from it.
and then there's nothing, so those are good. The small sheds out back, I think we're fine. There's nothing left on those. We've done the roofs on both entrances on both sides, the little entryways. Then we have to redo the roof on one of them.
Yeah, we did the roof,
That's out
Out to the modular.
not to the mod, but we,
Two, oh,
2 years ago.
yeah, two seconds.
yeah, before Chris started.
Oh, hey, we put a new roof on that for you.
While you're mentioning modulars, I'm assuming you want Amber to just continue to do a 1-year lease. You don't want her to investigate any multi-year at this point, I'm assuming.
I mean, I really hope at some point they just consider them abandoned and leave their stuff.
But they don't, they keep sending us paperwork.
You paid for it like
I
5
told her,
packs.
I was pretty sure it was just sign the 1-year lease.
It's, I mean, realistically, it's gonna be,
They're not gonna give us any more bargain here anyway.
can you ask her to find out if there is any potential savings on it to you? Because it's gonna be at least, no matter what, 2 or 3 more years of living. So if we can save some money,
And if not, just go ahead with the 1-year.
if not, if there's no money to be saved, you guys want to put Amber something to lease?
Yes.
If you can save some money, bring us some.
Okay. Will do.
So if I remember correctly, we talked about, have they increased the rates and then we negotiated to not increase the rates?
Yeah, I think they were freezing it. They were freezing the rate for a while. I didn't ask her what this year's looked
I
like.
don't know if we're paying rock bottom prices for those, but are there other?
They're definitely rock bottom modules.
We can't really do anything because they're grandfathered. So if we took them off and brought new ones, we'd have to have bathrooms.
I was gonna say, what's?
We're kind of stuck. Yeah.
Is it less?
I will assure you one thing, I am gonna go out on a limb and say that when those leave town, it's gonna be in dumpsters. Because I can't imagine them wanting to move again, or there being enough value.
Construction trailer maybe.
Yeah. All right, is there any other, like, things, Chris, that just kind of noodle around in your head that you think we need to be aware of for you to address?
Gym floor, is there?
It's a little bit of epoxy, not epoxy, but like varnish, looked a little funky in some spots in the gym floor.
Oh,
Like air pockety or something,
volleyballs.
is that what they call it?
That's what they call it, it's a professional term for them. So when the floor was installed, at some point, the polyurethane wasn't dry, the floor contracted, and you get the little polyballs in the seams. I guess I didn't notice them when I came in, and I had the floor recoated with a wax. Now we just need to wait a couple of years to let the wax kind of rub away before we have the polyballs buffed out and recoated.
Polyballs. Is there anything? Chris, if other stuff comes up, you let us know.
Yes, actually, right now, if you look at where you drive in off the asphalt road into the back parking lot, you're gonna see a trench that runs from one side of the parking lot to the other. Like to know if we can somehow figure out to put in, piping a culvert there. That'll eliminate a lot of problems that we're getting right at that main entrance. So I don't know if that's a conservation committee request, because all that water, the water runs there anyways, but it's just gonna take us to get a culvert, small Home Depot culvert, put some piping in, slope it, do it right. But, they're gonna see an increase of water running down to the main entrance.
Either guy needs to go to, you know what? An idea. We have a new road agent in town. Maybe give him a call and ask him for an opinion and just see
Yep.
what he thinks and maybe see if it's something he might be able to help us.
Okay,
I think I have his number. I
If-
think I have his number.
if not, You can get it, you have Ray Ellis's number, I'm sure Ray can. Phone. I'm just asking him for an opinion. That's in his wheelhouse and he may be able to say, this will help and then we can have a conversation about it. If they can help, it's easy work. Maybe they can come over.
Yep.
Knock it out real quick. Anything else?
No.
Right. Well, I think it's important, Chris, for us to at least thank you for
my pleasure.
the endless hours that you spend inside this building. You certainly go above and beyond, so thank you very
Thank you.
much. I hope you hear that enough. Thanks, Randy. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, we have, that knocks off, the community dinner planning.
It was a Jeffrey request.
That was a Jeffrey, and Jeffrey is not here. I think in a nutshell, Jeff's request was he liked the idea of the pasta. I'll try to at least field it enough to get maybe a conversation going, if not, with him, what it said. I think Jeff liked the idea of the pasta supper thing and trying to get some more people to come spend some time with us and talk with us and engage. And I think he was thinking in conversation that sometime in May would be a good time to do it. So I think the first question is, obviously without him here, this was something I think he was going to spearhead, but he said he got tied up with something. But we want to get on board with this and try yet another way to engage. And Gigi, you probably are the only one sitting here that has experience with it from a few moons back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a good idea. I probably stopped in my tracks a little bit only because I'm thinking about the proposal of also working with other committees in town. And so I'm wondering if that is it's a joint spaghetti dinner. And like, is it something that we do now, or is that something that we wait and get some advice on about working together, or is it better to have it and just build some school capacity, do some more tours and while people are in the building and, talk about like what are the types of things that people are interested in, I'm not sure what should come first now.
So why don't our next meeting is going to be another work session. So why don't we put this on as a topic for the work session as well? We're going there.
I mean, I love the idea. I would like to have it either way. I'm just not sure if it's us alone having it or if we say to the other committees, hey, get a bunch of people together.
Kind of like a townwide open house type of everybody come on down and. All right, so let's, no pun intended, let's noodle this around at our next work session. That work for everybody?
Yep.
I'll relay that to Jeff that he's gonna be in the hot seat. All right, friend of the court brief, we discussed briefly, was it last Wednesday, Patty? With the SAU board. So I think really, Patty, the question for us is if we want to sign on as a friend of the court, or do we want to also contribute funding to that case?
Pembroke voted last night to do that, to do both, and they're going to do $1,000 tonight. Peter is, it's on the Chichester agenda. Seen it, so.
Can you just give for anybody, you have that information for the.
Or I have, yeah, it was in the drive, but I remember the talking points. So when a student turns 18 and still has needs, and maybe DCYF is involved or developmentally, they're not able to live on their own. They lose their housing. DHHS is not funded for between 18 and 21 years old. We're responsible for special education services until a student turns 21, if they haven't graduated and they still need services. So there's been the requirement or the only option other than a student becoming homeless is to downshift the cost to the local taxpayer, and they're asking school districts for residential placements. And these are students that we would, if they were still in school, we would not recommend a residential placement. But because there are no other options, there's been pushback on the school districts to take care of this piece. So there's an attorney writing a brief. There's a current court case that was found in favor of the school district, but I believe it's being appealed. Is that what it was? Where it's at now, I think. And they're asking all of the school districts in the state to contribute between $500 to $1,000 and to sign on as a friend of the court to send the message that we are all pushing back, that we all believe this should not be pushed back to the local taxpayer to fund a residential placement for a student that we would not have otherwise placed residentially. And there's been a couple of instances that Assistant Superintendent Gersha can recall that this was in fact an issue in our districts. Those are the talking points that she presented at the school board meeting last week.
So if we compartmentalize this into two things, the first question for this board is do we want to sign on and say? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll move to sign on as a friend of the court.
Second.
Motion by Nate, second by Andy. Any additional discussion on that?
Yeah, I think for me, this seems like, it doesn't sound like it happens, at least in our district or even in our SAU very often, or at least in the past, it has not happened very often. But it has happened and around the state. See, it feels like the state government is shifting costs down to the individual town. It's not something I think we should.
So with regards to at least signing on as a friend of the court. Favor.
Aye.
So the next question is do we want to contribute to the legal fund?
I'll move to contribute $1,000.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Nate, second by Gigi. Discussion regarding that.
Yeah, what came up in the meeting last week was that, clearly this is on an appeal and then we're already working on it, and the brief is already being written, but support and write it stronger, spend more time writing stronger brief.
Certainly, I think for a long time, the state's pushed stuff back on towns and the towns have had to take it. There's a lot of cases where the state's been shrugging some of its responsibilities, so it should.
Law firm had offered to, they've been working on it for what is their normal.
Yes, a very reduced rate.
Yeah.
And Exeter and Milford had put in $11,000 getting it started, and every district was willing to contribute. Probably more than cover, and if there's any money left, they'll be refunded.
No prorate.
Yeah.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Next up.
Jay, we had some while you were gone.
Whoa.
We had JK and L.
I don't want a JK now.
Jay is done. It was the fiscal year update.
All right, let me write that number down.
473, 549.
Okay, that we added, surprise.
Goal setting, planning, goal setting / retreat.
Okay, and what was the other one? We had.
And then L was sort of tied into that was communication.
Since I have no clue. I believe I'm going to tag in Mr. Oxnard to walk us through. The J is pretty self-explanatory, but the L, Nate.
K and the L.
So that I don't step
Yeah,
on.
the L came up by Gigi's request, and it's the idea that we talked in a previous meeting recently about an opportunity for us as a board to set our goals looking at the and in previous years, that's taken the form of a retreat. We did a breakfast a couple times on a Saturday.
I think it was a weekday morning. Yeah.
It was over the summer.
Yeah, summer.
But we should prioritize that, maybe start to think about when that might take place, what that might look like. And a couple of the items that are starting to populate that list would be this communication with a town planner or with other committees in town that start to develop a bigger picture of as a town. And the other one was the communication piece. Linking up with the town website. You said there was a deadline.
I think Gigi
I
did.
think Gigi was talking about it, you mentioned something about it.
Yes, and I'm sorry, Errol, what's the name of the,
We're trying to get articles into the Dooryard Gazette by May 15th
okay,
for a June edition. You want to tell your story? Great place to do it.
All right.
sorry, I broke protocol, my bad.
It's what happens when Nate's in charge. You just go wacky.
I didn't even have a chance to stop me.
Yeah, the other thing that I.
The retreat thing that we're.
No.
Goals. Oh, in this building, you mean?
To the.
Oh, yeah.
So which one are you playing with first, Nate?
Well, I think we're not gonna solve, I guess we could. Might have something sort of as a smaller thing to do, to talk about now, but I think that the bigger question is to be, talk about a plan to set a date to lay out plans and goals for the year. That's a larger conversation, right? Which isn't gonna happen in this meeting. But finding a date, starting to talk about when we'll do that, and if we commit to it, we could do it this meeting. I mean, getting into a town planner conversation is a bigger thing, but we need to start to talk to other boards. Communication piece, we could talk about it.
So I think on the goal setting thing and sitting down, and I think it worked well when we were doing the breakfasts. Obviously, that all stopped. during COVID, right? Getting back in that rhythm, certainly have to issue with. I know schedule wise, some of us, we can probably be more flexible. I think Nate, for you, would probably really need to get outside of your school schedule. That's what I'm saying. So we get to some break, but does that put us beyond where we want to get into that goal setting conversation? Puts us goal setting ahead of, say, fiscal year. Sincerely. So I know Gigi, that's probably lead to you to be on that chart as to when do we want to get, do we want to make it work some of it later, in which case it may be a weekend thing? Or do we want to wait till June? Late June, try to do it as a week. I'm flexible. But it's just a matter of time.
Well, it's sort of like maybe a 2 hour.
2 to 3 hour, we kind of just camped out. And do it.
You were talking about recalling a longer time ago where it was it a whole day?
It was at least the whole morning, and sometimes it went through lunch into the afternoon.
I seem to remember breakfast and lunch a couple of times.
But it wasn't more like frivolous time. It was.
Oh, yeah, that's, they got
A lot of
done.
times there was kind of like a work session, and that's and I don't care if we make it two different things, and again, there are 4 of us, not just me, but I just felt like, couple things that have just kind of been moving out there for me is that one is the building expansion committee did not have any closure or follow-up meeting. Like we just, because there were other people on it besides board members. There were community members and there were administration and people that were in that meeting that were on the committee. And really just didn't get to debrief that at all, and I'm not looking that that has to be like a big long thing. I guess another thing that I have looking out there is, we had one discussion at one board meeting about that. And, about the vote and how it went, and we haven't really been able to, and then we had our meeting last week, but that was a discussion with the community. The five of us really have not really talked about process or how it went, and, what went well and what didn't go well. And so I was just thinking, and then another loose end that's hanging out there is I couldn't remember, off the top of my head about the survey, and when we said we said we were gonna leave it open until, but I couldn't remember when. Okay, so I mean, I think at some point we should say, we should publish a closing date, and then those results should be looked at, as well as the feedback that we got in our last meeting. And so those are just kind of things that are hanging out there for me.
So maybe we can, if we work backwards, I apologize. If we talk about the survey, we want to close that on, say, April 31st. How many, do you have a response?
We've had 5 responses since 4 weeks ago.
So you're 100 and.
So 175 minus my 2 tests.
And I haven't gotten to check the school box, but I checked we have gotten, though, there have been surveys taken, from the other sites, but not returned, at the town offices and Parks and Rec. Paper hard copy surveys, so maybe they return them to the school. And Kristen, I don't mean to put you on the spot, you may or may not know this, has there been any paper hard copy surveys returned?
So if we
Kelly?
wrap it up on the 31st, we aggregate the data, that can become a point of discussion for the next work session.
Okay, so take the data at the work session.
Well, I would, once you close it, Andy, the data pretty much generates pretty quickly, right?
I mean, but I have the data right now.
But I mean, we could get the data loaded into the drive prior to the next meeting.
Yeah.
And then once it's loaded into the drive, we all have an opportunity to review it and then discuss that at the work session.
So you want to close it April 30th and then review it May 4th?
That give everybody enough time, give you a couple, 48 hours, 72 hours to review it all. Does that work for everybody here? Maybe Nate, you can pop another Facebook thing up saying, hey, the survey's still running for another.
So that's your work session. So we're going to look at the survey data. Are you going to have more conversation about the build? And maybe that's a good time to start. Gigi's talking about start debriefing about at least the building, regrouping and what are the next steps, and it's just an overall building expansion conversation. Do you have other items that you,
I think,
for next time? It's going to happen quickly right after break.
yeah,
so
no, I think,
get an agenda.
I think LBA may have had another concept lined up that if we want to look at and talk about, we can. Certainly don't have to, but I think they put some pen to paper after our last meeting as well, some ideas. So we can look at that if we want to look at that. We certainly don't have to if the board doesn't want to look at it yet. Isn't necessarily something we have to do. So solicit feedback from everyone. It's a whole mentality if we want to continue.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna talk about the survey, I know some of the feedback is gonna talk about Spartan versus Rec. So we're then gonna look at alternatives from A, just at that point, try to talk about the capital infrastructure, whatever. Maybe they're looking for, maybe we can get the contacts that they have these other groups. And,
It's too late to invite a select board member to our next meeting.
the whole town. Certainly no reason not to.
Obviously that working, does it make sense to have one or two members and therefore join noise, or does it make more sense to have the whole board?
What would the purpose be? What would the-
So that's. The big mystery, right, is, like, I love the idea of the whole town, both sides working together and things, but there's also this. At the end of the day, our responsibility as the elected board for the school is the school. Select board and those committees' elected responsibility is the town's functions. And I understand this desire to collaborate, but we weren't elected police and fire and everything else, right? Like, we're cognizant of it, but our elected responsibility is the school. The elected responsibility of the board of selectmen is the police, the fire, and the transfer, and all of their other sub-functions. So
I like the thought of talking about that at the next meeting. That's why I asked that question. Is, are we organized enough to have that, to invite them, or do we need to have that work session and kind of figure out our plan forward, and then if the desire is to work together, then we have.
and
I
then,
mean, I don't really know the answer to that. Again, to me, it feels a little bit like, chicken and an egg. Like, I know that in other towns, what happens is there have been training sessions where the town creates what's called, they do a process called a charrette. And whole town, they invite people they invite people to represent all different groups from the town. It's a lot of people, and those people are put from different groups into smaller groups, and there's an outside facilitator that actually leads that process to be like, you know, this is what our town looks like now, this is what it looked like 20 years ago, and what do we want this town to look like in the future, and that actually includes, and there's a values component to it, like, these are the common values that we all have. If these are the common values that we have, what does this, you know, how does that play out in the resources and structures that we put in our town? I mean, it's a big process. I don't know, you know, how it gets funded or who you know, like, I hear what you're saying.
Initiates
You're clearly correct. Our purview
it doesn't
is,
happen often, so we need to record that and loop it.
that you're right.
Yeah.
but, you know, I'm just wondering if we're at this interesting juncture where as the email that we received today indicated that, you know, the same type of thinking is not on the part of the whole town, whether it's the select board or us, is not going to yield any different results unless we begin to maybe think about things different.
A perpetual source of frustration for me is this challenging way to get additional engagement. I mean, that's always been the case. I think the board of selectmen kind of mirror the same thing. I don't know what engages communities and disengages communities and whatnot, but certainly.
It's probably a bigger conversation, and maybe next at the work session.
Which, we noodle that around with cost.
And then, At
I
least-
mean, we have no idea if the selectmen even like the idea.
Right.
So the first conversation in my mind would be like, hey, you guys,
What do you think?
what do you think about working together to come up with, and I, you know, there was a master plan out there. I'm not well versed in what the depth is of a master plan and what a master plan covers for a town. How much of the school is included in the master plan.
We have a section.
And the planning board is revisiting that again. We will be actively involved in that process, but that's. I'll circle back to you, Errol, we're gonna have our conversation. But, you know, there is, you know, there's that process that's ongoing. Updating that, which is something that needs to be done. There's the town CIP, which needs to be revisited and looked at really on an annual basis, but that's not the school board's purview to do. That's the planning board's. And again, I just struggle with this, our responsibility is the operation in the private school. So that's kind of, that's our way. So that's.
I'm kind of thinking like, based on our next meeting, do we send a letter to the planning board and say, hey, this is what we're thinking, this is where we're going? Just gotta.
I'll be going to the first meeting whenever it is. So I can take that first.
That's true, that's already gonna happen,
Like, it's already, yeah, they're already starting.
and everybody's gonna have a rep there.
So we can north on school stuff. This is where we're going.
Yeah.
And then see if we need, planning board wants to pull in the school or what have you.
I mean, there certainly is always room for all of the independent functions of the town to work cohesively, but at the end of the day, everybody has their lane. Board of Selectmen has no purview here, just like we can't go sit at the selectmen's meeting and say, you know, you need to lower fees at the dump. No, they don't, right? Just like they can't sit here and say, you need to give every kid a chocolate milk twice a day. Just, it's not there. So I mean, that certainly settles into, we can have a deeper conversation at the next meeting. We can all discuss that. We could talk about, why don't we at that meeting, let's narrow, let's just pin down a date, so that'll just be an objective for the meeting. We'll see, we'll set a work session. Maybe it's a Saturday or Sunday, because it can work for some everybody's schedules on Saturday. If it's more of a board sit-down conversation, see, so I'd have to and stuff. So just sit down. A very frank conversation itself, that's a great opportunity for that to occur. So we can discuss a plan on that. Regarding communication, certainly like Errol's obviously taken the burden upon trying to rekindle a quarterly townwide newsletter. Certainly think we should participate, but I'd look for somebody. Anybody want to become the author for that?
This is the time frame.
It's May 15th is what I just heard. From
Yeah, I mean, is this just want to submit a report of the past 3 months of what happened with the election and what events since then? What is sort of the time frame that, is this would be a report, I assume, or is this a goal? What kind of statement will go into this publication?
Well,
What do we want to get out to the public?
I mean, I think, got probably maybe in citizens' comments. Errol might want to,
If the board wants to ask Errol to participate in this part of the conversation, I'm fine with that.
I think more you need, I think what needs asking is what do you guys want to?
I think we need to
Submit.
really, I know initially Errol said it's not intended to be political, which I like. It's informational. So the question is, maybe it's a recap of
What led up to the
what led up to this, and then, you know, as we're developing a path forward, here's where, you know, actions we're looking at or things we've discussed. And in a lot of that, Nate, you may have already written it, just a matter of kind of yarning it all together.
I would submit it to you before.
Yeah, we have one meeting
Oh, then I can.
You can bring it to that meeting. Next meeting.
Yeah.
Not that you don't have
Also, those electronic newsletter.
This would be school and so much information, this would be school board information. Okay.
So manual, let me take that. All right, BG, I think, what else did you have on your list of?
Things where the, us debriefing the committee.
So actually, another good opportunity is for us to invite the committee members maybe. For that next work session to join us and sit down for talk. Jeff's not here, but was it Andy or Gigi, you were the vice chair of that committee?
Not officially, but I can. reach out to
Unofficially?
them.
Okay. Can you do that? Just ask any of them that are interested in joining us for, we'll start with that if that works. So that if they want to, don't want to stick around all night, they can. No.
So it's May 14th.
This is it May 4th? May 4th, yeah. Okay. Anything else for that? Does that kill JK now?
The only outstanding
Oh.
would be, got deeper building conversation with, first be white, Thursdays, 6.
Are you gonna change the night too?
Yeah, no, that complicates it because there's other meetings in other towns. So I will say I'm not crazy about it. Also, I understand they've bought all their new gizmos down there and all that stuff. For the longest time, their gizmos didn't work and it was for half work. Now they have gizmos. I don't really care about that, but I know that from a function standpoint, when we're in this building, we have access to our stuff. If staff needs to come in and out, people can come up and whatnot, it just seems to work. We used to use the George.
We used it for a couple, before we had recording, we went. but
Yeah, and-
the board was not in favor of staying.
Yeah. We packed up and got the hell out of it as fast as we could. So I'm not for it. If you want to make a motion and it flies, great. If it doesn't, it's dead to me.
So I guess with the level of community engagement that we've had, both survey, at our meetings and the results. Trying to find out if there are other ways we can get, our information out to people. Is there a way, one of the reasons that we would give it there is because of the TV access. Right? So is there a way that we can somehow connect to that here?
Or live streaming. We're live streaming right now. People can,
Yeah.
They can't participate.
So
is that what you want them to be able to?
potentially, I guess, I'm looking for a dialogue. Town has the ability for members of the community to zoom in. So if they can't come to the meeting, they can still participate in public comments. They also distribute not just through a live streaming or recording, but through like local access television. So somebody can watch it on TV. Where here, they'd have to go.
Log into through Wi-Fi or whatever.
Right, use the internet to, find the live stream.
Or watch the YouTube video afterwards once it goes up.
We're talking about not being able to move from Wednesday to Thursday and telling somebody that they should then go, find the meeting after the fact. What if they only have time when it's happening?
No, but our meetings live on YouTube, so you can go back and capture them.
Yeah, that's fair. Again, just going back to the community engagement. Trying to find other ways to get our information up there.
Because if you don't have internet access, but you have cable, you will be able to get the TV station. And again, it may be small number of people, but it does give us, so I'm not a fan of not being in school. I feel like a school board should be in a school. But we also don't have the we don't have the same capabilities as the town does, unless we buy the same capabilities town does.
Gives access to the TV station. How does that happen?
So,
Guy.
I don't know for certain, but I think it's just a video that gets played by the TV station. I think they're just
Can we
uploading
do
it.
that somehow?
No, it happens in real time.
Does it happen?
I'm pretty sure.
I would assume it happens in real time, but I don't know.
I mean, I've been told I have a perfect face for radio. For TV.
So I guess at a minimum, would the board be okay with me trying to find out more about how the system works, see if we can facilitate something at least to check off that?
Yeah, I'm certainly, it's fine.
I'm interested in more information.
Does that kill JK? No. All right. PTO update. Hello, PTO.
Hello,
Will you update us?
sure.
Thank you.
We have a couple of things coming up. We have, plant sale that's gonna happen the Saturday before Mother's Day, May 7th. Right out front. There's still time to pre-order if you want to pre-order hanging baskets or, sets of pre-potted plants. Otherwise, you can order bulbs and ship to your house. We'll have a variety of different things available for purchase that morning. So in case you forgot your mom, you can stop by Saturday morning and pick her up something. Then we have Move Into May coming up on the 15th. Had a conflict with another event at the fairgrounds, so we've shifted and decided to have it here out in the field, like being behind the playground. So that'll still be a good event. It'll be great to have it here instead, I think. And we're gearing up for Teacher Appreciation Week, so there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out in the bridge in our newsletter about opportunities to volunteer or some donations that we might be looking for baked goods and lots of good stuff to close out the year. We're almost there.
Questions for the PTO? Thank you.
Thanks.
Very much. Executive board date, have you guys met?
May 11th.
May 11th.
Oh, May 11th.
We had that full board. Yeah.
I don't think we need a full board report update. We're all there. Ms. Whitty?
Yes. It's been very quiet, waiting for my turn. So,
You have behaved much better than all of the people who worked for me today in the marathon we had. And every 9 minutes, I was herding the squirrels back into the conversation.
yeah, we know how to herd squirrels. That's our.
Room full of salesmen, there's nothing worse.
So this covers our last meeting, March 16th, so the 17th until today. I'll start off by saying, I'll give the bus report, the bus information. So we got word that the green bus driver is giving her notice. Her last day will be this Friday. So as you know, they must have got across from the town hall area in that parking lot. Still looking for people. Not many people are moving forward. Nobody in the queue, basically. So we're down to 5 buses. So we're gonna need to pack the buses as much as we can. Basically, red bus will become defunct. There is going to be no red bus any moving forward. Red bus has been split between purple, right where 107 stops, and pink, where Route 43 stops. Blue bus is going to be starting just a few minutes early, and they will do church and meeting house in the morning and the afternoon. Pink bus will no longer have church and meeting house, but will have Route 43, which is part of red bus. Green bus will now start 5 minutes later, and green bus is packed. Mrs. Cron will be the green bus driver. Yes.
This is all going out to parents, that's.
Yeah, I have, I wanted to go over it with you today. I have all the routes and everything, all ready to go. So first thing tomorrow, I'll send this out.
So just keep in mind, a few weeks ago, we were trying to make sure we got Amy out of the bus.
Now she's not only stuck in that, she's got a big, the biggest route. Yeah. And white bus is going to pick up Ridge Road, stops in the morning only to save space for purple bus, and Ridge Road will remain on purple for the afternoon route. And purple bus will pick up Route 10, the 107 section of red bus. And basically there's a few other things, but not you need to know. So I'll send this out to families tomorrow. I have the updated bus routes. Times have not changed too much, except for the two that I mentioned, that green bus will start 5 minutes later and blue bus will start a little. Yeah.
We're running 2 high school buses too.
Mhm.
We school buses, and should we consider stealing a school bus as we progress throughout the course of the school year? Those 15-year-olds are turning 16, a lot of them picked up driving, we may have seen some reduction.
So I'm gonna ask for ridership numbers.
I'm not saying it's an actionable thing, but
Have to take action on it tonight.
no.
I can ask Kelly for the numbers, ridership.
But if there's a loophole of some form that we can kind of try to work. And there's likely there isn't.
I don't know that they would be valuable for May 4th because there's only a few days for a big break, but
But maybe it's
I'll have her start.
maybe it's a longer term, maybe there's a longer term solution there. I hate transportation. All right.
So on to better news. Classroom of the week over the last couple of weeks. Mrs. Cook's 6th grade class, Mrs. Peasley's 6th grade class. Mr. Green did that one. I was with Mrs. Potter's 4th grade class, and Mr. Green was with Mrs. McLaughlin's 1st grade class. He seemed to like his Oreos better than my chips. I'm gonna might have to steal the. Okay, I'm gonna steal your one there. And we also, I believe it or not, this brings us back a couple of weeks ago, we were finishing up Read Across America activities. So it just seems like that was so long ago and so much has happened in between. But we did finish up our Read Across America activities, and the Readathon actually brought in about $7,000 in the end. Yeah, it was amazing. They tracked, I'll get you an exact number once all the dust is settled. And as you know, Mrs. Mostu was looking to get some money to get some authors in next year. So we'll be able to do that. The kids, who did they say they wanted? I don't know, some big author, and that he costs like tens of thousands of dollars. So what's that? Yeah, actually, I think that's cool. It is a little while. Yeah, is Tender into that right now? Yeah. So really, it was such it was kind of a last minute decision for her to do this, and she feels like she kind of threw it out there, and next year she's got much more different plans to have it organized, and it really was a good fundraiser. It tracked the number of pages kids were reading, the minutes that they were reading, and did all that tracking for us. So it was a great addition to Read Across America. We did have some mock interviews. Thank you to Superintendent Sherman and Superintendent Warburton, along with Mr. Yerjo. We and several staff members who joined us one afternoon weeks ago to interview our interns, to put them through a mock interview to give them some practice. They did a virtual interview with the group, and then they did an in-person interview so that they would have and provided feedback. This is a tradition we've done for years, and so thank you to Patty and Peter who came over specifically to help with that event. On Friday, the 25th of March, DARE started back up again. So with our 5th graders, Officer Alex Millette was our DARE officer a few years ago. It's kind of been a pandemic, one of those things that we weren't able to do. And now he is back in the flesh doing DARE, and the kids are enjoying that very much. We have the fourth graders went on a field trip to the State House on Friday, March 25th as well. On Tuesday, March 29th, our 7th and 8th grade band and chorus students took a field trip to Pembroke Academy. They had a big concert there. So we have not been able to really get out, and Mr. Trong and Mr. Quinn brought that group over so that they could see a high school concert. And on Monday, April 4th, we had our CRB meeting, which Gigi will report out on. And Thursday, the 7th, we had very successful parent-teacher conferences. As you know, we offered them in person and virtual. In our middle school, students all did student-led conferences. And we had a ton of success with that. And believe it or not, we had actually more virtual than in person. There were several people that did come in and wanted to get in the building, especially a lot of people have not been in the building, as you know. But I think the virtual, when you say
Yeah.
virtual, outweighed the
But probably 2 to 3.
two. Yeah. But it was great to have our folks back in the building that were able to make it come. Friday, the 8th of April, we had our first middle school dance since October. That was exciting. And the October dance was outside, but this one was inside. And pretty much
80s theme.
80s theme. Yep. A ton of 6th graders came. It was heavy on the 6th grade, so we were glad that that we were able to have that for them. On Thursday, the 14th, this past Thursday, we had a Nature's Classroom representative come to speak to our 7th grade families. We're looking, that trip is happening mid-May, 17th, 16th, something like that. They're going to Nature's Classroom in Maine for a few days. Right now we have, there is a COVID testing that must be done, so they have to do a home test 72 hours prior, and then they're also going to have to test that morning before they leave. So Nurse Heisey has worked on getting her CLIA certificate, and so she will be able to test any student that doesn't have to test at home. We were able to provide tests as well, and them to do a home test. So, but it was a very informative evening. We had quite a few families come. Lots of kids came to hear about Nature's Classroom. And then this week we had another group of Nature's Classroom folks, Nature on Wheels. They came and they were on our campus with our 6th graders. So they had been out in the woods for days and days and days. So if you have a 6th grader, I hope they came home very tired. And they had a lot of fun. Yesterday the weather wasn't too great, so they were inside for the morning, but they were outside for the afternoon. I don't know if you heard, but the chicks have hatched. So we have peepers come in. You can go down as soon as you go bottom of the stairs, you'll hear. So that's been exciting news. Last night was also our 4th grade biography night, which last year had to be virtually, and this year was back in person. Today, DCS hosted SAU leadership, so we had our all the SAU folks here for a nice leadership meeting. And as you know, our baseball team, softball team, track team, Girls on the Run, and after school enrichment have all been happening throughout the course of this month. Our baseball and softball teams have had a few games. Last night in the Mecca of Barrington, baseball Mecca, Mr. Reeve happened to be able to double dip, and
DCS lost.
yeah,
I'm
significantly.
rooting for the DCS for a few more years. So my son possibly makes.
So just some upcoming things for you. Obviously, vacation next week. Happy vacation to everyone. When we come back from vacation, we will have the book fair. We'll have a book fair in town. And on Tuesday evening will be, which is May 3rd, we're going to have the art show. As you can see, some of our artwork is hanging all over the building. Miss Dickey and Mrs. Chase have been very busy getting ready for the art show. On Thursday, the 5th of May, when we come back from vacation, will be the talent show and also Tricky Trace. So that's.
So the 7th grade is going into science camp. The 8th grade, will they be able to have a class trip this year?
Yeah, we're the 8th grade is looking at going to adventure. I can never, is it adventure bound if you call it adventure lore in June.
So they'll be able to get kind of a proper trip in. You had mentioned the fundraising for Read Across America. I'm gonna ask, if I missed it, I apologize, but we also had the jump rope for
Oh, yeah,
art, and that's always close, that hits close to home for me, so
yes.
is that still ongoing? or is that all-
I knew there was one thing I forgot because the celebration is going to be on Friday. Mr. West has the, the brackets are all set. And they raised over $12,000 for that.
Awesome.
Really awesome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Gigi, I believe that brings us to you.
Yes, and I sheepishly must say that in my rush to get here, I did attend the CRB for the first time in person for a really long time. And it was very odd for me to sit and realize that out of I counted 16 people there, I only knew 5 of them. Which was a weird thing.
Staff members you meet?
Yeah. Yes. In fact, the 2 people that did most of the talking, I was like, who are they? But anyway, and then usually the notes historically have been written on the agenda.
Yeah.
And they haven't been the last
Oh,
couple times, so
Okay.
I
That's
can't,
good to know.
I normally I take handwritten notes, but so I just went to pull up the notes and I'm like, okay, I got nothing. And I wouldn't rely on my memory.
So, do you want to backfill anything, or do you want to revisit it at the next meeting?
I guess the only thing for you to know is that the curriculum, the math curriculum is ready to be presented.
Right.
I was gonna ask about that. So
So-
what meeting?
That was most of the
That was
conversation.
17th, right?
And that's so whatever,
Or the-
yeah, in May,
So we would schedule that for the second meeting.
which is the 18th.
So if you want the staff now.
Yep, they're ready. They know, they're ready.
I think
Oh,
I told them that would be it, yeah.
Can we get that curriculum posted in advance?
Absolutely, it's ready to go.
Okay,
So
yep, just send it
sure.
to, yep.
Anything else for the CRB? We'll move on.
It's the big news.
All right, building expansion committee, Jeff's not here. I don't necessarily have anything to update that we haven't already discussed, so that will go. High school options. Next conversation.
Yeah, and so there were some comments on it tonight about asking for transparency, and I understand that it's a frustrating place for us to be in negotiation. Very much. I'll just reiterate that the way the process goes is that any sort of result of negotiations would go to the town. It's okay, it's publicized and approved by the board as the first step. Both boards, it would be then sent to the state for approval by the State Board of Education, and then the next final step after that is to be approved by the town. So it's gonna be completely. Negotiations we can't.
I saw Andy, but who wants it?
Go ahead, Andy. I was just wondering if it's worthwhile for us to really just kind of revisit the entire process that we went through, that the board said, hey, who would want to be in charge of the subcommittee? You took a subcommittee, you met X amount of times, asked for community input, and people, it might be worth just reminding people how we got to negotiation.
Yeah.
The
And
schools that were
minutes
negotiating.
are all posted as well, and there is a folder on the essay, it's in the SAU page, it's all right from websites, but it's up there, and there is a folder that's for high school options, and they're all the minutes.
Unfortunately, that's the problem, so. We are struggling, engaged citizenry in most people's minds doesn't mean I search for stuff in websites that I don't normally go to. And I'm not saying this to you, Nate, I'm really just saying this in general. Engaged citizenry means I'm gonna hand this to you, and I'm gonna hand it to you 6 different ways, and I'm gonna put it in, and that, me, I think, are simply gonna have to come to terms with that we can't, we may not be able, if in fact we want not to be told and accused of being having lack of transparency, it will mean that we'll have to put, you know, multiple Facebook posts, multiple whatever, you know, multiple, we'll have to figure out some type, and that may mean help, that you need help with communications, or we need a communications subcommittee, you know, that we
Sure.
work on, we bring somebody to the meeting and I don't, you know, I'm not sure what that looks like. But that's unfortunately, I think, what happens is that we are in it, so we know what we did and we know how that went down. We know how many people participated in our committees. We know that. But no one else out there really understands that. And then unfortunately, what that perception is like, they don't tell us anything.
Basically just gonna echo what you said about all the information that we collected and consolidated as part of a committee or subcommittee prior to negotiations starting. It's all on the SAU website. It's publicly available, searchable, reviewable. Just like the FAQ that we posted on the website, it talks about when we're in negotiations, we can't share those details because they're contractual in nature. Because of that, that part of the process is not public. So if people perceive the contract negotiation as hiding something, I would say it's an inaccurate assessment.
It's the process.
It's the process. And voters will basically get more information after negotiations conclude. And we move forward with other schools approving, unapproving, and then moving those to elections. So I don't know what else to do. It's very frustrating.
Maybe a committee of communication committee or publicity committee. Something we should consider next planning. Is that a step we can take?
Okay.
On the notes. We have, Nelson A, again, we're meeting tomorrow at 5:30 in Concord. Concord, Patty. Amber, and whoever Concord is. Right. Let's do some policies, Patty.
Yes. So I don't know if folks remembered, because I had forgotten, when you're looking in your drive at the policies, unless you download the policy, it doesn't show the red line edits. Did people remember that? And did you have a chance to see? Yeah. I saw it today and thought, I wonder if people actually knew that, because when I edit and I redline and track the changes for you to see the difference in the policies, and it gets uploaded, you can't, if you just go into your drive and look at the document, there's no red line. If you download the document to Word, you see all my edits. So I have like all kinds of red edits on that I have a feeling you probably didn't see, unfortunately. So in the review, I brought you a colored copy because I was thinking that you maybe didn't.
Is it all of them or just for BC?
It's just it's the GBCD, and it's the second one that had the edits.
It's like one of the folders.
Yeah. There was a sample and then two that look like your current one of them. So I don't expect you to be ready tonight, so let me just quickly go through and explain why there's a lot of red line in here. Yeah.
All of the policies that are in the folder like this.
No,
or you actually
this-
download them.
If there was red line, this is the only one that has red line for this meeting. So just this GBCD, and I just gave you what I have. So we just made some edits to reflect our current practice, and then one other thing that I'll review with you. So we do the online registration portal. The sample says that there's a release form from the state police, and that there's full sets of fingerprints, and that we do not do that. People are not allowed to carry their fingerprint card and bring it places that could easily be altered. We send people to the state police for the live scan. So I just updated that to reflect our current practice. I struck letter E, which was exceptions for substitutes, bus drivers, and bus monitors. We do a full background check on all of those folks. The state changed the requirements for bus drivers. They're going to conduct a piece of it, but it's not a full report. And most school districts in the state have said, we're gonna continue doing what we're doing and do a full background check on our bus drivers. So that the results have to come to me. Kelly initiates it and she sends them, but they're not allowed. Only superintendents can get results. So even though they're Dale employees, the results come to me, and we have a little checklist where I can get back to Kelly to let her know when people are all set to go. There's a new statute that allows us to have a designee. So if I was out of the office or Peter was out of the office, fingerprints could potentially sit there and were unable to be opened by anyone. So the new law does allow a designee. It's very specific. Our designee can only be an assistant superintendent, head of human resources, or personnel director, and then the VA. So my designee is our HR coordinator, and she now has the authority to look at those results if they come and I'm not in the office, because sometimes there's a real time crunch and people are waiting to be employed. There's and that's more designee stuff. There's a lot of this stuff is struck just to reflect our current practice, but then one of the changes that we're asking our boards to approve that's held things up a little bit in some districts, and that is choosing to nominate an applicant who has a non-Section 5 offense. So the law changed a few years ago, and instead of getting Section 5 is like the, possession of child pornography, assault on a student, those significant, like non-hireable offenses. That's what we used to get. And then the statute changed and we get the entire background check. I know about all of the overdue parking tickets. I know if there was a DWI. I know way more than I want to know about these employees. And they're often very surprised to hear that I'm getting all of that, because this is new. So they've been employed in other districts where it was never mentioned. And then I'm calling them saying, hey, we have some things we need to talk about. The sample policy requires those offenses to come before the school board. We talked to Bear Christina at the School Board Association about this, and he did indicate that it is allowable for the superintendent to make those decisions on those minor offenses without bringing it to you for approval. So they would be, again, those misdemeanors such, if we have, and Peter and I always make the decision together. So if there was someone, say they're 40 years old applying for a job and they had a DWI when they were 18 years old, I would not see that as barring them from employment. So they're supposed to be offenses that would prevent you from being able to do your job. So that's basically the proposal that's going to every single school board and our SAU to allow us to make the decisions on the misdemeanors. I think that was it. Yeah, so just take a look.
Let's become the executive.
Not yet, no.
So do you want us to take action on this, or are we still in review?
Well, it's up to you, but I thought if you didn't see my red line, so you weren't able to compare word for word, I didn't want to ask that you make a decision if you weren't ready.
So wish on the board on this one?
I'm happy to move this. I had a meeting we talked about that. Anita's the example.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a motion, we have a
I
second?
haven't moved it yet, but I just, sure, I will move it, yes.
Okay, so now let's move it.
I'll move policy GBCD.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The rest of the policies, Patty.
So can I just mention a couple of things?
Yeah.
That's okay. So BEDGR is actually a policy that the School Board Association withdrew because they mentioned that it was in EH, but you actually don't have EH. So we're gonna put that on the next agenda because you need that. And then others, the BED, So the BEDG-R and the EH-R, the R means it's an administrative procedure. So the general main policy that doesn't have the R next to it is the policy you adopt that refers to the policies and procedures that usually the superintendent puts in place. So those will be on your next meeting agenda.
Just clarifying, are you saying that BEDG-R, is this gonna have similar or the same language as EHR?
The school board association, the note was that they withdrew that policy because all of the information is found in their EH policy. So you'll have the EH policy to approve.
So actually, the BED.
It will be, yes. I don't want you to withdraw it until you have the other one. So I don't want you to take action yet. But yes, that policy was withdrawn by the school board association. The others, the weapons policy, JICI, is on the agenda because of a grant audit of all things. So when our grants are audited, when you receive federal funds, there are certain policies and procedures that you're required to have in place in order to accept federal funds. So not necessarily Deerfield, but we had an audit and our district was flagged for not having, I hope you can see the language in red. On policy JICI, we had to have that one sentence pursuant to the provisions of 20 USC 7151 Gun Free Schools Act. The board requires the superintendent to contact local law enforcement authorities and or the Division of Children and Youth Services and notify them of any student who brings a firearm or weapon on school property. So that sentence needed to be in the policy in order for us to be in compliance when we receive federal funds. So that's what that one is, and that's on a first reading. And then the only other one that I would just like to mention quickly is KCD, which is donation, gifts, and grants. Your policy, you will see, is much more involved than the sample policy. And that was because of, when was the greenhouse grant? 10 years ago? It was a long time ago. But the board,
Around sometimes that subject.
the board made a very comprehensive policy as a result of that, because I think the board was very upset that they were not consulted and asked about pursuing that grant for the greenhouse. So
The entire board or part of it?
When I say the board, it's the official action of the majority of the board. So I'd like you to take a look at that, and it would be very rare that anyone on our staff would apply for a grant that was, we brought the robotics grant before you because of this policy, but typically we would say, oh, there's a robotics grant available. Of course, we're going to apply and see if we can get some robotics materials. So just take a look at that and see if you might consider paring that policy down. That was really kind of a reaction to something that happened a very long time ago.
Go back to EHB, that's an existing policy and we're just looking to reaffirm it or?
EHB, I need to ask Kathy about that because EHB and EHBR were revised by the School Board Association in September. And your policy was dated in November. So your policy came after the school board revision? Yeah, well, I just want to make sure that there wasn't something added that.
Well, we would have started it up to 2 months prior.
Yeah, I think you're all set is what I'm saying. I think they revised the policy and then you adopted it a few months later. So I'm not sure if something else was added that I'm not aware of, and I just want to check with Kathy on that one.
I was trying to get it at the same.
I love that you love. Nothing makes me happier than knowing you go home and read policies. All right, anything else on policies, friends? All right, so we have, did you guys add informational, anything?
We covered it.
Okay.
Communication.
We did, okay. Public comments, any public comments?
Only question I have is whether all the items that were asked for by the building administrator are being put out to bid. Is there a minimum? Is there a bid requirement for over a certain amount?
There is a bid requirement for certain amounts, but it is, nothing on that would have hit that market other than the bubblers, but the bubblers were there.
$10,000 doesn't hit it? $6,000 doesn't hit it? $15,000 doesn't hit it?
When the, do you want to speak, Jen? Okay. Chris gets multiple quotes if it exceeds the amount in the policy. And he would either bring those back or we upload them.
Everything I heard was, I have a friend, I know somebody that was, I mean, just listening to what was said, it wasn't, I have 5 bids or I have 3 bids. I was like, I know somebody will do this. So it just, the town certainly has to do that when they get bids. I think, I don't know I think it's over $1,000 that they have to get 3 bids.
Yeah, we've got a policy in place for that, and I think it was like number 4, like that number they got was years ago.
I don't even know
We
what the
got a
number
policy in
4 was.
place to manage this.
We didn't see the list of, or the numbers. I only gleaned these because you mentioned them. I was just wondering if that would have been also normally available to people who are attending, the whole list of asks and the amounts.
So the list, the first time the board saw it was tonight, but the information will be in the minutes. The information from the list will be in the minutes.
So it'd be in the minutes, but it would have been old news by the time it got there.
Or it depends on. All right, any other comments?
I haven't heard an answer on the bid issue, I guess. You do get 3 bids on over what amount?
Right, so this is citizens' comments. Chris follows the policy and he'll get multiple quotes and prices on it. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. We have, non-public. NHRSA 9183, 2 small letters A and C, look for a motion going non-public.
So moved. Sorry.
Moved by Gigi, seconded by Nate, requires roll call. Andy?
Yeah.
Nate?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Gigi, yes.
It was Andy who seconded.
So it was Andy who seconded that. It's 8:45, we're non-public. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Brian, do you need any help?
I got it. All right, so I'd like to move that we accept the nomination that was put forth to us.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next.
I would like to move that we accept the resignation that was put forth to us
Second, with regrets.
with regrets, absolutely, with like regrets beyond words.
Second.
All right. I was seconded by
Nate.
Nate,
Yeah, go.
but you can second the regrets. All in favor?
Aye.
And we have one more.
And I would like to move that we accept the custodian salary increases as were outlined
Second.
to us.
Second. I'm sorry. Did you get that?
Gigi, Andy?
Yes.
Andy.
Okay.
Favor.
Aye.
Aye. Look for a motion to, there's nothing else, right?
No.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.